And now let's study the alternative to VLOOKUP. And let's start actually by studying a new function called match. Remember, with index we said that the number of the month was 8, and then we went to the month block and we got to know that the month that was 8th was in the block August. Now match is exactly the opposite function of index, which means that at first we have, let's say, the word June, and now what we write is equals match parenthesis begin. We are now going to search for June, which is B12, from the block that's called months, plural. There has to be a 0 in here as well, just the same way there was a 0 in VLOOKUP always. And when we enter it, it tells us that June in that block called months was on the 6th row. So once again, with index we get the block and we say that it's the 8th month that we need, and it tells us August is the 8th. We tell it the row number 8, it tells us August. With match it's exactly the other way. We tell it June, and it tells us that June is on the 6th row. From word to row number is what match takes us to. Okay, let's try it with the next table. We have a number of sportsmen present here, and they have achieved places, the 6 first places in the competition. So Kaisk, Saar, Paju, Tam, Kuusk, Mänd are the ones who have achieved places 1 to 6, and they have completed the exercise with 360, 322, 301 and so forth points. Now we have here this Paju. Actually this data validation doesn't work that well at the moment, so let's see what the names are. This is the block place, this is the block name, this is the block points, and let's go to data validation, which was Alt A V V, and let's make sure it's list, and let's write the correct thing, equals name in here, and we can select the competitor. Let's remain with Paju. Okay, and now what we're interested in at first is which place did Paju come to. So we're looking for the block name, and we're looking on which row Paju is. So we write equals match parenthesis. Now as we see, match needs the lookup value, so we click on B6. We're looking for Paju from semicolon. Now comes the block's name. It's called name. So we're looking up the names. And remember, in match we also need number 0. For the same reason we needed it in the case of VLOOKUP. And we close the parenthesis, we press enter. And here it is. Paju is on the 3rd row. This is the result. Now let's see what else we can do. We now know that Paju is on the 3rd row, and now we go to the points block and take the 3rd point score, and we get to know what the Paju score is. So let's write equals, and now we have to think, does this mean we need the index, or does it mean we need the match? So we know that it's the 3rd row, and we want to get the point score. That must have been index. So we write equals index, parenthesis begin. Now index will need from us the block name, the so-called array. So we write points. And now from which row to take the point total, this is C6. And let's press enter. And it goes to the point scores, takes the 3rd one out, which is 301. And here it is. This is the point score, 301. So what we got to know was Paju is in the 3rd place, and he got 301 points. But now we have to notice what we have just done. Namely, we began by having the competitors named bio. And after we used match and then we used index, we were able to get from bio to bios points, which basically is exactly what VLOOKUP does. So with index and match together, we have performed VLOOKUP, moving from bio to its point number 301. Another thing, yes, let us try to write this index and match now all in one stretch. Right now we just wrote at the beginning match, and then we used index in the next step. Let's write it all in one step. But before that, let's check if we change it from bio to SAR. It nicely shows us that it's the second place that SAR got, and it's the 322 points that he got, so it works just fine. We go back to our exercise where we have the owner H. Kusk. Remember, the table here contained apartments 1 to 8, the owners, their apartment areas, their number of people, and we now want to know if the H. Kusk is the owner, what is, for instance, the area or the number of people for that apartment. And for that, let's write equals, and let's at first still do it in 2 steps. So the first step is, let's get to know on which row this H. Kusk is in the table. So we write equals, and we want to match Kusk then. We match, we see on which row he is. Equals match B19 semicolon, the block's name is owner, semicolon a 0 here as well. We'll talk about what the alternative to 0 soon. And we write enter, and here it is. It goes and it searches on which row H. Kusk is. So here it is, the block owner, and H. Kusk is on the 5th row. And actually, just as it happens, if he's on the 5th row, it's also the apartment number 5 that he has. So again, this is kind of a coincidence that all the apartments are on the same row as the row number. So is the apartment number. So this could be different for office buildings. We have, let's say, first floor rooms are 101, 102. Second floor rooms are 201, 202. But here we have apartments that are numbered like the buildings people live in. Okay, so actually the first thing we needed to do was simply a match, because now we know that H. Kusk, his apartment number is 5. And now let's use his row number 5 as well, and get to know what's the area of H. Kusk's apartment. We write equals, and now we know that it's row number 5, and we'll go to the area block and take the 5th area out. So this time it's not match when we're matching where is Mr. Kusk, but rather index. We take from area block, the C19 contains our number 5, so we take the number 5 out. Enter. And the area for H. Kusk's apartment is 74,5 square meters. So we just used index. Okay, and got the area 74,5. Again, we used that first match and then index, and we began with H. Kusk, and we ended up with his apartment's area 74,5. So in 2 steps we did basically index and match together, and the same functionality as VLOOKUP had for us. Okay, Next thing is to do it all in one step. So we're looking for a number of people. We'll write again. We want to know on which row Mr. Kusk is, and then we go to people block and get the same people's number. So we write equals match parentheses begin, and now we take from B19 is H Kusk. We're looking it up, and we're looking it up from block called owner. With match we have to put a 0 in the end, and we enter, and here it is. He's on the 5th row. Mr. Kusk is on the 5th row. Now we take the formula again, and now we put index around this match and write it all in one cell, because there is actually not that much space to waste that we're always using two cells like we've used in case of these sports competitors and in case of the areas lookup earlier. So what we do now, this match gives us that Kusk is on the 5th row, and now we take index, go to block called people, and semicolon, match. So with index we take from people's block, and we go. And remember, with Microsoft Excel, all the formulas were run from inside out, which means that it takes this match and runs it first. It looks for H Kusk from owner's block, and the result is H Kusk is there on the 5th row. Now it's replaced, actually. This match is replaced with number 5, and now this command is already simple. It takes from the people's block the 5th one, and now we know that on the row 5 in people's block we got one person living. So H Kusk is really living alone in his apartment. And what we've written effectively is index and match all in the same formula. Matching on which row H Kusk is, index taking from people's block the 5th one, which is number 1, the result. And again, we have basically done VLOOKUP. We have looked up Kusk and told the number of people in his apartment. The only thing is that this index and match is more universal. Right now we're going to be able to, we don't have to look from the first column of the table, but we can even look up, let's say, the area. We can look up who has the area of 45,6, and then move on to the owner who's associated with it, v Tom. So it's more universal than VLOOKUP, and actually our suggestion is that you only use index and match always. It's actually more difficult to use, because it's, I mean, the formula like index with a match within is more complex than VLOOKUP. But if you practice it, and we'll have a lot of practice in the next week, so if you practice it, then it's actually not that hard to write. Let's press enter.